from the very beginning. The first daughter had been different. She was strong, determined, and blessed with a heart that loved deeply. She was the kind of woman who carried responsibility on her shoulders without complaining. It was no surprise, then, when she blossomed into a woman admired by many. And when love found her, it came in the form of a man who was both gentle and deeply devoted to God. He wasn't a pastor, not officially, but his devotion was stronger than that of many ministers. His prayers shook the house. His faith held firm even in the storm. He was a man whose love for God shone through his actions, and this made him the perfect match for the first daughter. Their marriage began like a dream. They laughed often. They prayed together. They shared simple joys, and their home soon echoed with the voices of children. To anyone looking from the outside, theirs was a blessed life, a happy family, guided by faith, protected by love. But even in the brightest light, shadows sometimes linger. Every few months, the mother of the first daughter would visit them in the city. She came like any loving mother would, carrying smiles and soft words. She ate their food, played with the children, and asked about their welfare. To neighbors, she appeared like the perfect mother, caring and warm. But unknown to the young couple, her presence brought something far more sinister. It always began the same way. The moment she left, the house would change. Where there had been laughter, there would be arguments. Where there had been peace, there would be fights. Simple matters exploded into raging quarrels. Love turned into suspicion. Happiness into tension. At first, they thought it was normal. After all, every marriage has its moments. But the husband, a man of prayer, noticed something others would not. He began to connect the dots. He realized that the strange quarrels, the sudden arguments, always followed the mother's visits. It was too consistent to ignore. Quietly, without announcing it, he began to pray. He prayed against manipulation. He prayed against unseen forces. He prayed for his wife, for his children, for his home. He did not yet know the depth of the battle, but in his spirit, he sensed that something dark was working against their peace. And he was right. The truth, a truth hidden for years, was that the mother was no ordinary woman. By day, she wore the face of a mother, but by night, she was something else entirely. A witch, one who flew in the night, one who fed on destruction, one whose heart had long turned to wickedness. She had tried countless times to initiate her first daughter into witchcraft, but each time something blocked her. Each time her rituals failed. Each time her power was frustrated. And the reason was simple: the prayers of her son-in-law. What she didn't realize was that every prayer he made in secret was like fire burning against her works. Every word he spoke against manipulation became a shield around his wife. So when initiation failed, she turned to another weapon: trouble. She decided that if she could not own her daughter's soul, she would destroy her marriage. This battle went on for years, a battle the daughter never truly understood. Yet, despite all this, the first daughter continued to love and give. She sponsored 2 of her siblings to Europe, paying their way so they could find greener pastures. She even sent her mother on vacations, hoping to ease her burdens. She placed her family first in every opportunity that came her way. But wickedness can never be satisfied. No matter how much she gave, her mother remained restless, greedy for more, hungry for power. And slowly, the cracks began to show. One day, the family suffered a terrible accident. Their brand new car was destroyed, written off completely. Miraculously, they survived with only minor injuries. To the neighbors, it was luck. To the hospital staff, it was chance. But the husband knew better. He could feel in his spirit that this was no ordinary accident. It was an attack. Still, they pushed forward. They prayed harder. They clung to God more fiercely. But the mother's hand was not done. She turned her eyes on her grandson, one innocent child, playing, laughing, unknowing. And suddenly, another accident struck. This one worse. This one so tense that everyone thought the boy would die. Yet once again, God came through. The child survived. The mother grew furious. If she could not take the daughter, if she could not destroy the marriage, then she would turn her wickedness on the children. And so the battle deepened. Yet, through it all, the first daughter remained strong. She continued to stand by her husband, though the mother tried everything to poison her mind. She remained a pillar in the house, though her siblings slowly began to turn against her, manipulated by the same woman who birthed them. What kind of mother would do such things? What kind of heart delights in the ruin of her own blood? The years rolled by, and though the family had survived storms, the clouds grew darker still. The mother's visits continued, and each time she stepped into their home, the atmosphere shifted. The children would suddenly become restless. The husband's heart grew heavy. The daughter's spirit battled with unease. It was as if her presence carried an unseen weight, pressing down on the walls of the house. The husband intensified his prayers. He woke at midnight, whispering fire into the silence. He laid hands on the doors, on the children, on his wife. And each time, the powers of darkness recoiled, frustrated, and weakened. But the mother was persistent. If she could not enslave her daughter, she would destroy everything around her. She turned her attacks to the very foundation of the family, their unity. The first daughter was a giver, a helper. She worked tirelessly to secure opportunities for her siblings. She was the one who sent 2 of them abroad, ensuring they had documents, tickets, and a safe start in Europe. She made sacrifices, going without luxuries so her siblings could enjoy comfort. Yet, the mother twisted these sacrifices into weapons. She whispered lies into the ears of the younger ones. She painted their sister as selfish, controlling, and proud. Slowly, the siblings' hearts turned. Gratitude became resentment. Honor became bitterness. They forgot the countless nights she had stayed awake planning their future. They forgot the sacrifices she made, the tears she shed. They saw only what their mother wanted them to see. The father, a strict disciplinarian, was the only other one who noticed what was happening. He stood firmly, refusing to let his home be consumed by lies. But this only fueled the mother's wrath. She hated him for his authority. She despised his discipline. And so, she poured her poison deeper, manipulating the children against their own father. "Your father is too harsh," she told them. "He doesn't care about you like I do. He will never understand you. But I am your true ally." And they believed her. Only the first daughter refused to be swayed. She stood by her father, even when her siblings mocked her, even when they accused her of being blinded by loyalty. She alone understood his strength. She alone knew his sacrifices. This loyalty made her mother furious. The battles were no longer subtle. They were no longer hidden whispers in the dark. They became open wounds, bleeding into the family. The siblings turned their backs on their sister. The ones she had lifted high no longer remembered her kindness. They no longer visited. They no longer called. They left her alone in her struggles, while their mother continued to grow fat on their loyalty. The years dragged on, and one day, the father fell sick. It was not an ordinary sickness. It was a kind that slowly drained life, the kind that kept him bedridden, staring at the ceiling in silence. And when this happened, only one child stepped forward, the first daughter. She cooked for him. She cleaned him. She spent nights at his bedside, whispering comfort when pain made him groan. She carried him to the hospital when no one else would. She sold her belongings to buy medicine. She wiped his tears when his body grew weak. And where were the others? They were gone, abroad, living in comfort, sending nothing, caring little. Their mother's manipulation had blinded them completely. They only celebrated her, showering her with gifts, building her houses, praising her as the perfect woman. The father saw all this. He saw how his first daughter alone cared for him, while the others ignored him, and it broke his heart. Day by day, he grew weaker. His voice thinned. His strength faded. And in the end, when his time came, it was the first daughter alone who held his hand. She was the last face he saw before he closed his eyes forever. The siblings did not come. They did not contribute. They did not even care. And so the man who had once stood firm in his house left the world quietly, his heart broken, but his faith still anchored in God. The first daughter wept bitterly. She wept not just for her father, but for her broken family. A family that once shared love, laughter, and unity, now shattered into pieces by witchcraft and manipulation. But even as she buried her father, she stood strong. She refused to be broken. She refused to bow. She continued to pray, continued to love, continued to hope that one day her siblings would see the truth. Little did she know, the story was not over. The mother's time was coming, and when it came, the pain she had inflicted on others would finally return to her doorstep. The years rolled by, each one carrying its share of silence and tension. The first daughter continued to live with the scars of betrayal. Her siblings, the very ones she had lifted out of poverty and pushed toward brighter futures, had long turned their backs on her. They celebrated their mother as though she were a saint, sending money, building houses, treating her like a queen. But they forgot the one who had sacrificed her own joy for theirs. It was a wound deeper than any knife could cut. And yet, the first daughter pressed on. She poured her energy into her children, into her husband, into her faith. She refused to bow to the darkness that had haunted her since her youth. But justice has a way of coming, sometimes slowly, sometimes painfully. Almost 10 years after the father's death, the mother's body began to fail. At first, it was small aches, weakness, unexplained pain. But soon it grew into something darker, something that could no longer be hidden. The doctors gave it a name, cervical cancer. It was a cruel disease, one that ate her from the inside out. The same body that had once flown in the night, the same tongue that had cursed her children, the same hands that had caused accidents and stirred trouble. All of it was now racked with unbearable pain. She who had once laughed at the suffering of others now tasted the bitterness of her own medicine. Nights that she once used for witchcraft became nights of agony. Days she once filled with manipulations became days of groaning. She who had once caused accidents could barely stand without trembling. The woman who once commanded fear now sat weak, her body wasting away. Her children gathered around her, the ones who had worshipped her, the ones who had believed her lies. They bathed her in comfort, built her houses, gave her money, but none of it could remove the pain. None of it could heal what had taken root in her flesh. The first daughter watched from a distance. She did not rejoice, though she had every reason to. Instead, she mourned quietly for the family that had been lost, a family broken not by poverty or hardship, but by manipulation from the pit of hell. As the sickness ate deeper, the mother began to realize a bitter truth. No house, no money, no loyalty from blinded children could stop what was coming. She had sown wickedness, and now she was reaping destruction. Her final months were filled with agony. Food lost its taste. Sleep fled from her eyes. Every breath was a struggle, every movement a torment. She who once feasted on power was now eating the same pain she had served others. And then, at last, death came. It did not come quietly. It came like a thief, stripping her of dignity, leaving her children confused and broken. She was buried, but her legacy was not love. It was division. Her children, once bound by sisterhood and brotherhood, never regained the closeness they had before. The love that once held them together was gone, shattered by the manipulations of their mother. The siblings continued their lives, but their bond was fractured. They could not sit together in unity, could not trust one another. Each carried suspicion, resentment, and pain. The first daughter, though scarred and weary, remained standing. She had carried the heaviest burden, endured the sharpest betrayal, and yet she survived. Her life became a living testimony that no matter how strong wickedness appears, it cannot last forever. The lesson: this story is not just about one family. It is about the reality that evil can hide in familiar faces. It is about the truth that no matter how much you give, you can never satisfy a wicked being. It is about the unshakable fact that prayer works, that the unseen battles of life are won not by strength, but by faith, that manipulation, betrayal, and witchcraft may last for a season, but they will always end in destruction. The first daughter stood firm. She refused to bow to darkness. She chose light. She chose faith. And in the end, it was wickedness that perished, not her. Let this story remind us all. Wickedness will always reap what it sows, and no matter how dark the night, the light of truth will always break through.